Apologies, Anna. I'm going to keep going, and if we see if it crashes out again, I might ask Bruno to step in for me at this point. But apologies. The co-op monitor this world. So we know that co-ops across the world have been leading and are mitigating and adapting to climate change. And amongst the many examples we've seen, and those examples in the World Co-op Monitor today, are the work underway by Rabobank, by the Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperative Limited, and by the S Group, the Finnish consumer cooperative. This year's World Co-op Monitor focuses, as would be expected, I guess, on these two themes, COVID, as well as the reaction to climate change. And at the end of this webinar, we're launching the 2020 report, and that will be available on the website at www.monitor.coop at the conclusion of this event. This afternoon, over the next few minutes, we're going to hear from a few speakers. We have Bruno Rowland of the ICA, Gianluca Salvatore of USC, and then Kiara Carini will present the key results. And this will be followed by a roundtable discussion where we're joined by Taran Bagava of IFFCO and Sarah de Hoysch of SMART. So to introduce our first two guests, and I'll introduce Sarah and Taran properly in a second, but Bruno has been Director General of the ICA since 2018. He was Secretary General of SECOPA between 2002 and 2018, and of its regional organisation CECOP, SECOPA Europe, as of 2006. But Bruno, perhaps if I could call on you to say a few words first.
Yes, thank you, Pete. I would like to welcome you all in the name of the ICA, the International Cooperative Alliance. The World Cooperative Monitor has had 9 editions already, so for 9 years, the ICA and Eurexe have partnered in publishing this study of large cooperatives and mutuals. I would like to emphasize 3 main aspects in the evolution of this study over those 9 years. The first one is that the study first ranked cooperatives and mutuals based on turnover, but as of 2018, we also started ranking them and providing qualitative information, qualitative analysis on them based on other criteria according to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, or SDGs. This new focus on the SDGs in 2018 immediately caught the attention of the United Nations Secretary General, who in 2019, and for the first time since the World Cooperative Monitor was launched, hailed this study in his report, Cooperatives for Social Development. And he did it precisely because we had started analyzing cooperatives and mutuals based on the SDGs. The focus on the SDGs was pursued then in 2019 with employment, SDG 8, and now in these 2020 editions with climate action, SDG 13. On each of these 2 occasions, the main theme of the World Cooperative Monitor was also the theme of the United Nations International Day of Cooperative at the beginning of July. So this has created another positive interaction. A second important factor in the evolution of this World Cooperative Monitor has come from the terrible COVID-19 pandemic, which burst out last year and which we are still very much fully struggling with. This big disaster prompted us to have a second focus in this 2020 edition on the response of large cooperatives and cooperative groups to the pandemic and its consequences. As we will see later in the webinar, the first findings suggest that cooperatives have again been particularly resilient to the crisis. Of course, this observation will require more in-depth studies in the future when we have more material, like was the case when a number of studies were done after the economic and financial crisis of 2008, which already showed the resilience of cooperatives to crises. A third important step forward in the elaboration of this edition of the World Cooperative Monitor is the collaboration with the ICA's new think tank, the International Cooperative Entrepreneurship Think Tank, or ICET. ICET began organizing in 2019, and it really took off in 2020 under the pandemic, and in particular under the chairmanship of Tarun Bhargava from the Indian Farmers Fertilizers Cooperative, one of ICET's members, and he will be one of the speakers today. ICET groups a series of large cooperatives and cooperative groups from various parts of the world and in various sectors. it has started working on a series of key topics for the cooperative movement at large and has provided key inputs to this study regarding both climate action and the fight against the pandemic and its consequences. The members of ICET, large cooperatives and cooperative groups, which are precisely the object of analysis of the World Cooperative Monitor, have thus been able to provide their testimony and experience through a joint and reasoned approach and not one by one. And this, I think, provides a key qualitative leap forward in the evolution of the World Cooperative Monitor. Finally, I would like to mention that the two main topics of this year's World Cooperative Monitor, so climate action and the fight against the pandemic and its consequences, will be among the main topics that will be discussed at the ICA's World Cooperative Congress, which will take place both in Seoul and online in December this year. It will be the 33rd Congress since the establishment of the ICA 125 years ago. And these two themes will be analyzed in the light of the Congress overarching theme, deepening our cooperative identity. So the analysis of these two key themes of this new edition of the World Cooperative Monitor is also an important step forward towards the World Cooperative Congress later this year. Finally, I would like to thank Peter Westall from Mid-Counties, another member of ICET think tank, for being our moderator today. I would like to thank the EURIXE colleagues who have worked on this study and organized this webinar with us, Gianluca Salvatori and Chiara Carini, who will speak today, as well as Ilana Gotz and other EURIXE staff. And other speakers today, also I would like to thank them, Tarun Bhargava and Sarah de Roche. Thanks to my ICA colleagues who have taken part in the preparation of this webinar, together with the EURIXE colleague, Yongsi Keum, Santosh Kumar, Joseph Njuguna, and Lere Luengo. Thanks to all participants for being here with us today. To you, Pete.
Thank you, Bruno. Appreciate that. And thanks also to yourself for your work and your leadership over the last 12 months in getting us to this point. It is appreciated by all of us. Our second speaker is Gianluca Salvatori, who's been with EURIXE since 2009. Since 2018, he's the Secretary General of Fondazione Italia Sociale, and he is a member of the European Commission Expert Group on Social Economy and Social Enterprise. He's also an observer in the UN Task Force on Social and Solidarity Economy. So Gianluca, welcome.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Bruno, and thank you to you all participants to this webinar. Just a few words about the background of this collaboration between ICA and EURIXE lasting 9 years. The starting point years ago was that research on the cooperative model had not much space in the past. In universities, research centers, business schools, other models have dominated. And this situation had consequences, not only for the knowledge for researchers, but also for the development of the business of cooperatives. The lack of studies on cooperatives has conditioned the possibility of finding, for instance, prepared managers or informed policymakers and a favorable ecosystem able to confront and interact with the cooperative specificity. EURIXE is a research center created specifically to address this lack. This means applying to issues that are relevant to the life of organizations and individuals, cooperatives and cooperators. This approach translates into a specific and original identity of the way of doing research. The EURIXE's way of understanding research, not only as an activity of analysis and observation as an ordinary academic institution, but also an activity for transformation. Also, from the methodological point of view, this approach marks a difference. Research is, in our view, more like a team game, not an activity for solitary specialists, but a continuous dialogue with users and subjects under analysis. Is a structurally cooperative activity in which the research demand does not arise unilaterally from the curiosity of the researchers, but reflects the need of practitioners and the need of organizations. In this framework, the monitor is an example, a good example of this collaborative research, whose effectiveness depends on the participation of an increasingly large number of subjects. Since we started 9 years ago, we have constantly strived to improve the quality of the monitor, both from a methodological point of view and in relation to the quality of data. It is important that this effort is shared and that the number of organizations contributing to the collection of the information that are necessary to produce the monitor is increasing. We made a lot of progress, but many more can still be made, broadening the scope of investigation and paying attention to specific issues. The possibilities are endless if appropriate partnerships are built. This is our view, and I hope that this webinar will help in this direction. Thank you.
Gianluca, thank you, and thank you for your wise remarks, but also thank you for the help and the effort you have put in personally on this as well over the course of the last 12 months. And your point about the World Co-op Monitor enabling us to collaborate better is, I think, well made. One other point of reference, there are some chat messages coming in, which is great. And I'd advise everybody to look at the chat function as well. We can't answer questions today as we are going, unfortunately, given the number of participants. But if you put your email address, if you do have questions on there, we will respond later in terms of the answers to those. So turning now to the World Co-op Monitor itself, I'd like to welcome Kiara Carini. Kiara is a senior researcher with Euryxy since 2009. Her area of expertise is social and economic data collection and analysis of that. And she's worked on the World Co-op Monitor since the first edition. So Kiara, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pete. Let me share my screen. Okay, just a second. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As Pete was saying, today I'm here to give you a brief overview of the main results of the 2020 edition of the World Cooperative Monitor. As you may know, and as Bruno and Pete and Gianluca already said, the World Cooperative Monitor is a project promoted by the ICA with the scientific support of Euryxy. We started this project in 2012, and the main goal of the project is to find and monitor large cooperatives and mutual organizations all around the world. To do so, since 2012, we are building a database containing economic, employment, and other type of data on large cooperatives and mutuals all around the world. And since 2012, we published an annual report including global and sectorial rankings, and not only rankings, but also some thematic special section about topics that might be of interest of cooperatives. Looking at this year edition of a project, so looking at the main results of the 2020 edition of the project, the report includes 2 global rankings and sectorial rankings. All the rankings are economic in nature, so are based on economic data, but the rankings include also data about employees, as you can see in this table on the slides. The tables on these slides report the top 10 positions of the 2 global rankings. The table on the left refers to the top 300 cooperative ranking based on turnover expressed in US dollars, while the table on the right refers to the second global ranking. This means the ranking based on the ratio of turnover over GDP per capita. So we release 2 different rankings, which are purely economic, both purely economic, but these 2 rankings are different one to the other, because the first one, the one based on turnover, ranks the cooperatives and mutuals based on absolute terms. So we take the turnover in absolute terms, while on the other side, with the second ranking, we try to relate the economic size of the company, of the cooperative, to the economic wealth of a country. This because we know that we are analyzing data from all around the world, and that there are different economic situations all around the world. As I was saying, in these tables, you can see the top 10 positions, and looking at the top 300 based on turnover, Groupe Crédit Agricole from France confirmed the first position. It was first also for the last editions of the project. And while on the other side, looking at the top 300 based on turnover over GDP per capita, IFCO, the Indian farmer fertilizer cooperatives, jumped on the first position of the ranking. The full rankings will be available in the report that, as Pete mentioned, will be released just after the end of this webinar. And in the report, you will find the top 300 rankings, so the complete global rankings, but you will also find the sectorial rankings. In these tables, you will find economic data, but you will also, and let me emphasize this, find data about employees, because we did a great work in finding and looking for data about employees, and you also will find information about economic activity and type of organizations. Going deeper in the statistics about the 2 global rankings, here you can find some data about the distribution of the top 300 cooperatives ranked based on turnover, distributed by type and economic activity. I have to say that the population covered by our project is quite large. Indeed, we collect data about different types of organizations. We are trying to collect data about cooperative enterprises, but also about cooperative aggregations. And we include in our project also mutual organization and non-cooperatives controlled by cooperatives. So if you look at the graphs on the top of this slide, you will find data about these typologies. And if you look at the numbers, you will see that more than 90% of the cooperatives listed in the top 300 based on turnover are producer cooperatives or mutuals or consumer cooperatives. On the other side, looking at the distribution by economic activity, you will see that the majority of the cooperatives listed in this first ranking are active in the sector of the agriculture and food industries, or in the sector of insurance. What is quite interesting is the geographical distribution of the cooperatives and mutual organizations listed in this first ranking. It is quite clear from this map that the organizations listed in the top 300 ranking based on turnover are based in 3 regional areas. They are based mainly in Europe, and we have 166 organizations from this region, and then we have Americas, and we have the Asia and Pacific region. Let me say that during the last years, we did a lot of work to improve our methodology and to improve our process of data collection. So we can say that we have a quite good coverage of data for a lot of countries all around the world. But we have also to be honest, and we have to say that there are still some countries and still some regions, in particular for the African one, for which we have still work to do. We need to improve data collection in this region. And to do so, we ask for your help. We ask for the help of cooperatives and federations in order to be able to increase the coverage of our project in Africa and also in Asia and Pacific regions. Moving to the second ranking, so moving to the top 300 ranking based on turnover over GDP per capita. Here you can see the same graphs I presented for the other ranking. And as you can note, there are minor changes comparing to the previous ones. So still, the majority of cooperatives and organizations ranked in this second ranking are producer cooperatives or consumer cooperatives and mutuals, and the majority of organizations are active in the sector of agriculture and insurance. Still, if you look at the geographical distribution of the organizations ranked in this second ranking, you will note that still all the 300 organizations come from 3 regions: Europe, Asia and Pacific, and Americas. But if you look at the list of the countries, you will see that there are some new entries comparing to the previous ones. So, for example, we have in this ranking 2 cooperatives from Turkey that were not included in the previous rankings. So, using different criteria, change the composition of the ranking. These were, very briefly, the main results concerning the rankings. So in the report, you will find the complete list of the top 300 cooperatives or mutual organizations ranked by turnover and turnover over GDP per capita. And you will find also sectorial rankings. But the report that will be released this afternoon does not include only rankings. As Gianluca and Pete and Bruno already said, it also includes 2 special sections focused on COVID-19 and focused on SDGs, and in particular on climate action. As already said, to work on these 2 topics, as Ulrich and as World Cooperative Monitor team, we worked with the International Cooperative Entrepreneurship Think Tank, which I thank. And this collaboration was very useful in order to collect data and find best practices to be shared with you today and to be shared in the Monitor report. Just a few words about the 2 sections. So the COVID-19, as you all know, COVID-19 affected the 2020 year and is still affecting our lives. So during last year, what we did was looking at the consequences of the global pandemic on the action and activity of cooperatives, and especially on the action and activities of large cooperatives all around the world. And in particular, we looked not only on the consequences, but also on the... We didn't look only at the consequences, but we look at the reaction of large cooperatives to the global pandemic. In the chapter dedicated to the COVID-19, you will find some examples taken from the top 300 cooperatives and from the members of the think tank. And in particular, you will find a case study focusing on a European cooperative, which is SMART, and the actions that SMART put in place to help their members who are working in the culture and creative art sector, which, as you know, is one of the most affected sector by the crisis deriving from the COVID-19. Moving to the second special section, so moving to the climate action section, in this part of the report, we focused our attention to the actions that the large cooperatives are putting in place to mitigate and adapt to climate change. Also, in this case, you will find several examples taken from the top 300 cooperatives ranked in our rankings and from the think tank members. And you will find also a case story focusing on Rabobank and the actions that Rabobank is putting together to not only within the bank, so not only within the organization, but also the action that Rabobank is promoting to encourage a change in the actions of the partners, of the clients, and of members of the cooperative. So these are very briefly the main results that you will find in the report. I hope that you will take some time to read the 2 chapters dedicated to the COVID-19 and to the SDGs. And I have to say you that while we are closing the 2020 edition of the World Cooperative Monitor, we are already starting to work to the new edition. So we are already starting to work to the 2021 edition. And to do so, we need your help. So let me close my presentation to a call for action. We are collecting data on cooperatives. As you will see in the report, we use several data sources to create and to update our database. But the best way to increase and improve the quality of the data of our database is to involve cooperatives and federations directly in our process. So please be part of our project, put yourself in contact with us and share your data with us. Thank you very much. And Pete, the floor is yours again.
Kiara, thank you. And thank you so much for the work you have put in for this report. I'm lucky I've had a sneak preview of a report, and it is well worth reading, with an awful lot of really good information in there about how we as cooperatives can share best practice, as well as the financial and other data in there. We are joined today by over 200 cooperators from across the world. And just looking at some of the chat in there, we have representatives from Canada, from the US, from Malaysia, from Nigeria, from Ireland. The list goes on, as well as from Chipping Norton in Oxford. And welcome to one and all, really. The second part of this event now is a roundtable discussion with 4 experts on 2 of the areas we've spoken about, whether COVID reaction or whether cooperatives' response to climate change. So we've heard already slightly from Bruno and from Gianluca. I'd like first and foremost to introduce, if I can, Tarun Bhargava. Tarun is the Joint General Manager of the Sustainable Development Team of the Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperative, IFFCO. He's also chair, and probably more pertinent for this, he is chair of ICET, the International Cooperative Entrepreneurial Think Tank. He has been both a mentor and friend to me personally, as well as to many of us over the last 12 months. And his chairmanship of ICET has, I think, taken that group forward a long way. He's also celebrating a cricket this week as well, Tarun, so I think we should mention that. But welcome, Tarun. We also have Sarah De Huish is a Senior Public Affairs Officer for the General Development Unit of SMART, which was mentioned previously by Kiara in the World Co-op Monitor. Sarah has been looking particularly addressing the issue of social protection and labour market evolution for many years, particularly around the gig economy and these freelancers and the protection that we need to give those through cooperative structures. Sarah, welcome as well. So if I can ask perhaps Gianluca, Bruno, Tarun and Sarah. Tarun, perhaps if I come to you first as chair of ICET, as well as in your role with the IFFCO. The World Co-op Monitor we've heard about from Kiara, it helps large cooperatives share best practice and share knowledge. How important is that, do you think, in this day and age? And how can cooperatives utilise that knowledge across the world?
Thank you, Pete. Welcome all the participants of the webinar today. I would like to begin my address by congratulating all of us as humans on the planet who have withstood a global pandemic of this magnitude. Never in our lifetime we have witnessed such a crisis across the globe. 2020 was the year of celebration of indomitable spirit of humans, and once again this has been proving our solidarity, unity amongst people and the nations. It was also the time when ISET was taking shape. And today, this is an historic moment as we are witness to the global launch of World Cooperative Monitor through the virtual platform for the first time. This is more inclusive, more impactful, and more meaningful for the cooperative world and beyond. I would like to congratulate Bruno from ICA and Gianluca Salvatori from Eurixe in this golden moment. And would also like to extend congratulations to Kiara, Ilana, Laura, Lair, and Santosh for their efforts to make it happen. I remember the famous words of international cooperator, visionary, innovator, Dr. U.S. Avasti, MD IFCO, that whether small or large, all cooperatives should be treated equal. Pursuing this vision, IFCO was committed itself to International Cooperative Entrepreneurship Think Tank, that is ISET. After a lot of brainstorming, WCM was included as part of one of the working groups of ISET. And I believe this is going to be a game changer and a forum to share and bring the best practices and knowledge amongst the cooperatives across the globe. We have seen in 2020 that best practices, including the governance policies, needed some serious thinking to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. This also includes the financial strength and engagement of members in cooperatives. I believe that there is a constant need to embrace the change and dynamically evolve the best practices across the regions and various sectors of cooperatives. At this point, through ISET, we would also like to make WCM, that is World Cooperative Monitor, a continuous vehicle to exchange and promote cooperative dynamics, youth and women engagement, and cooperative research through technology-based applications. One of the key words I would like to highlight today is innovation. I feel WCM will also bring together the innovations in the cooperative arena. One such example is the AroundTheWorld.coop, which has showcased the achievements of large as well as small cooperatives of various continents through cinema. Another example is the Coopathon 3.0 recently organized by ICA Asia Pacific to stimulate minds of youth to create innovative solutions for cooperatives. I would request ISET members to consider a proposal to create a youth entrepreneurship fund to support innovation. This is also a moment to share the vision of our revered cooperative guru, Dr. U.S. Avasti, with seeds of innovation which he has planted in us, resulted in creation of nano-urea developed by IFCO for the farmers of the world. This will bring a revolution in the way farmers use fertilizers to grow crops and to provide food to millions. One bottle of nano-urea will replace one bag of 45 kg of urea. Last but not the least, I would appeal all of you to protect and promote the cooperative identity, which will be celebrated in the 33rd World Cooperative Congress in December 2021 in Seoul and online, as Bruno has told us. Once again, on this auspicious occasion, I call upon all the cooperators of the world to join hands and illuminate the globe with light of cooperation. I would like to thank ICA and Eurixe for inviting me on this webinar. Thank you. Over to Pete.
Okay, thanks, Tarun, and thank you for your wise words. Sarah, I guess the same question to you in terms of how the World Co-op Monitor helps large cooperatives share best practice.
Well, as for many research, I think that it's very important because it really helps cooperatives to better understand the context in which they evolve, how they can improve, how our practices can influence the environment in which we operate, but also to develop arguments and data to lobby for adapted legal framework for better economic policies and social policies, and especially regarding co-ops in the case of the World Cooperative Monitor, of course. So this collaboration is really great. And in fact, it's very important that the researchers collaborate with the cooperatives, because we think it's very important to be able to co-construct the information that we need together to share experiences, because cooperatives also have a lot of knowledge. And in fact, in many collaborations that, for example, we do with researchers, we like to co-construct knowledge, because there is different approaches from researchers and practitioners, but we are all enriched in dialoguing, in creating a more structured dialogue amongst ourselves. And this we do in the frame of, with big cooperatives, like in the frame of ESET, but we also do it at a more local level and with smaller cooperatives. And it's always very enriching, whatever the size, whatever their sectors, and even the fact of being able to compare different sectors can be very, very enriching. So yeah, and also the cooperation between the different cooperatives and talking with different cooperatives from different sectors, different countries really can improve us. We learn from each other, we are inspired, and we can also collaborate more. Building on knowledge is also about developing new ways of seeing the world, and also contributing to the cooperation among cooperatives. So I think those are great initiatives and places to debate, work, and build a new world together.
Thanks. So I'd agree completely. We're mid-counties were fortunate, probably 18 months ago now, we have Hans from Rabobank came across to talk about the work that Rabobank are doing, a different sector to the one that we as a consumer co-op are in, but you could still learn, and we learned a lot from that visit, that cooperation. So I guess, Bruno, to you, the same question.
Yes, Pete, well, just echoing what Tarun and Sarah said, I think that indeed this World Cooperative Monitor is providing an interesting and a good instrument of co-construction. And because it has been, especially last year, a real collaboration with between different cooperatives and cooperative groups with us on this World Cooperative Monitor. But I want to say also that cooperatives has, since the very beginning of the cooperative experience back in the 19th century, the cooperatives have since the beginning exchanged on their model and their experience. And this has been absolutely fundamental in the development of the cooperative business model everywhere on the planet. Otherwise, it would not have happened. So if we are now 3 million enterprise, which by the way is much more than the 45,000 listed companies you have in the world, if we are about 10% of humanity, we are more or less 10% of the world employment and all this kind of, the big chunk of humanity, of the global reality. If we have reached that stage, it's because of, in great part, because of exchange of experience and exchange of on this business model. So the World Cooperative Monitor is a very good instrument in this respect. And in fact, the fact that we are so many today is also a living proof. It's not only among the large cooperatives and cooperative groups, but there are so many people now online today. And from what I've seen, from many parts of the world, from the cooperative movement. So it shows that we are exchanging. So whatever our forefathers did by taking a train with big suitcases and going to London and going to Paris and so on, different meetings, now we are doing it like this. And we're exchanging, and it is much more immediate. So the leverage we have now on exchange of experience is 1,000 times bigger than our forefathers had in the 19th century. So it is accelerating, and I think this is it gives us, I would say, a very optimistic view of what we can achieve. We could achieve even much more, let's say, by exchanging with each other. I think we're on the right path.
Thank you, Bruno. And of course, besides the annual World Co-op Monitor about sharing information, we also have the Co-op News, the Co-op Press, which is pretty much the voice of the movement and allows that collaboration between all of us on a regular basis. Gianluca, the same question to you, if I may.
Yeah. I would like to stress two elements. The first one is that the monitor was born with a specific focus on the largest cooperatives, because at that time, we needed to show that in the cooperative movement, we do have large organizations that can influence globally. And this was essential. But nevertheless, the monitor is a tool that can be applied regardless of size. It can be easily adapted to measure the weight of cooperation in individual countries or in regions, or in sectors, or in subsectors. It provides a flexible tool, methodological tool, for spreading knowledge and communication. So really, we invited researchers to adopt the methodology of the monitor, also to create sub-monitors at local or at regional level. And we are at your disposal to spread and to transfer the knowledge, the needed knowledge. Another aspect that is quite important to me is that today we are living in a world where the ability to react quickly to changes is increasingly important. No company, no organization, not even the largest, today has the ability to cope with this speed and to manage its own development in total autonomy. That's why we need to be creative in managing the interdependencies that are more and more important, both in terms of innovation and in terms of knowledge of markets or anticipation of new changes in society. This is why acting within networks, and the cooperative movement is a network, and the monitor makes clear the extension of this network. Well, acting within networks, where is it possible to exchange knowledge, compare trends, evaluate experiences, is fundamental. This way of working together multiplies the opportunities. The monitor would like to help developing this sense of belonging to a single global network of companies, which, regardless of their sectors and dimensions, share the same model and the same values. And I mean, they recognize that they need to learn from each other. This is the lesson that we can draw from the monitor experience in these years.
Thank you, Gianluca. I'd agree entirely. The shared values and principles, and then the shared application of those values and principles probably leads on nicely to the next question. I guess, Bruno, if I could come to you on this. We have seen co-ops react, and the World Co-op Monitor talks about how the co-ops have reacted to the dreadful circumstances of the last 12 months. I guess looking ahead, how do you see co-ops rebuilding the economy? How do you think co-ops can help in that rebuild process?
Yes, Pete, first of all, to say that we have few elements at hand at this stage to understand what has been really the response of cooperatives to this crisis, to the health and economic crisis. What we see is that the response has been proactive. I mean, the little information we've got, not only through ISET and the World Cooperative Monitor, but also through other channels like the Lumio platform that we created, or the feedback we get from members, from sectors, from regions of the ICA and so on, shows that there has been not only resilience in terms of resistance, but also proactiveness in finding responses. And this is logical, because if cooperatives are there to meet people's needs, well, of course, I mean, they have to adapt to the needs, the precise needs that you have under a pandemic. So so this capacity of cooperatives to meet their members' needs and to be listening to their members' needs is fundamental. It's a fundamental also tool which cooperatives have in order to respond to the post-pandemic period, which hopefully will see much more emphasis on cooperation than on competition. We'll see, let's say, the value of cooperation as being, let's say, much more higher on the agenda. We see many previous axioms of cooperative theory being shattered by this pandemic, like by magic. And I think that we have a golden opportunity as cooperatives to to find our place in this post-pandemic period. The good news is that we are, unlike in 2008, we know that the reason of the economic slowdown is not linked to specific economic or financial reasons, but to a health reason. So actually, as soon as the pandemic, let's say, slows down and the health situation improves, there should be a, let's say, a much better economic situation for all. And this is the moment in which cooperatives have to replace themselves in the world and show very better than in the past their role in this new period. You're muted, Pete.
Sorry, Brendan. Sarah, I guess from your experience, you've also facing the challenges of how to rebuild, but from perhaps a different lens, really, in terms of workers and so on.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yeah, well, as Bruno said, there are some common values and functionings, and you mentioned it also within the cooperative world of placing about building solidarity and placing human before profit, which is crucial. And it goes through an economic model also that makes cooperatives create these reserves that are not distributed in dividends. And with these reserves, we were able to quickly rethink what solutions we had to build in these moments of urgencies that we had with the COVID situations that were unforeseen. And we had to learn to actually do things that we are not used to doing. I'm thinking of the click and collect for the mid-counties. I'm thinking also, for example, in our experience, one of the things that we do for our members is that we declare working days for them. And we actually had to start doing things that we were not used to doing was declaring non-working days, working days that were canceled. And we quickly shift. It was not always easy, but I think that the values allowed that, and the reserves allowed us also to put into place some mechanisms of solidarity that are going straight to our members. I think that there are many lessons to be drawn from these pandemics. One of the things is that we should not be rebuilding the world we had before. We have to think of a new world that we have to build after the pandemic, which addresses the challenges that pre-existed the pandemics and that the pandemic only exacerbated. We are working for specific workers, which are freelancers in different sectors of activities. We have, yes, a lot of creatives, but we also have people from a lot of very different sectors of activities. And what we saw is that this pandemic actually increased the inequalities among the workers. And many reports have shown the inequalities in levels of income, a lot for the people with short-term contracts that were not taken into consideration adequately. But we also have the women, younger, the elderly, who were all very much impacted from the pandemics. So we have to rethink, and I think the cooperatives are a place where we can really rethink a new world based on old values of the cooperative world, but that are most needed, and maybe now more than ever. And from our perspective, I would say that there are things that we have to rethink on the level of social security. We really have to think of a social security model that is inclusive of all segments of the population, and especially those who have been hit hard by the pandemics on the one side. And then on the side of the economic policies, I would stress two elements that are important. What we've seen is that the small economic entities like freelancers, but also like small and medium enterprises are rooted in the local economies and in the social fabric, and they have been majorly important actors within the frame of finding solution very quickly. But what we also see within ESET as well, and the larger cooperatives, is that sometimes under the banner of a bigger cooperative, they can work more swiftly together and react more quickly. And so we have to juggle with these aspects of small, locally rooted, and a bigger banner in a more cooperative and networked way. And another thing that I think is really crucial is the question of the taxation model. We need to build tax models that incentivize companies that are virtuous in terms of social and environmental practices, and that penalizes those who produce negative social and environmental externalities. If we don't address that, we will not make the future world that we need. And I think that the cooperative world will be ahead in such a vision compared to classical enterprises.
Perfect, thank you. That's a comprehensive and a really useful answer, Sarah. That's good. Gianluca, perhaps to yourself next in terms of the rebuilding and how co-ops can play a part briefly.
Yeah, I would say that this pandemic time has confronted us with two challenges. The first concerns the need to think of the economic and the social consequences as two dimensions that must be faced simultaneously. They are intertwined. We cannot think of an economic recovery without addressing the social effects of the COVID emergency, and vice versa. The social effects cannot be addressed without an idea of how to restore the economy. The second element is that is a matter of scale. This was an absolutely global emergency. It hit all over the world. It challenged us with the need for a coordinated response on an unprecedented scale. These two challenges had the effect of bringing back public powers to the center stage. National and international authorities have taken back space and power. We saw our governments with the authority to stop a business, to close schools, to freeze social life, and confine us indoors in our homes. But the orders and measures taken by public authorities were effective, not so much for fear of sanctions, but by and large for the civic sense of the people who accepted limitations to their own freedoms in the name of the common good. This is my feeling. In the midst of the emergency, people rediscovered a kind of civic virtues, and beyond formal compliance with the law, they behaved in a socially responsible way, including by engaging in voluntary activities, in performing acts of solidarity, in supporting social economic organizations, and so on. The COVID-19 pandemic cast a new light on the crucial role of social economy organizations, and especially on cooperatives, in meeting urgent societal needs. In a post-pandemic world, the social economy could develop a larger role to transform economic and society by fostering more inclusive and sustainable development. This approach, the cooperative model, proves to be particularly suitable for this time, because these are times vulnerable. These are vulnerable times, and cooperatives were born in vulnerable times.
That's great.
Thank
you. And it is exactly in keeping, as we said at the start, with the concern for the community and the values and principles that we all hold so dear, and rebuilding in perhaps a different way than we were before. Tarun, lastly to you, if I can, you will have a particular view, I guess, from an ISET point of view, an ICA point of view, perhaps a wider global world point of view, briefly, if I may, but the attempts to rebuild and how co-ops can play a part. You're on mute, Tarun, if you can.
Thank you, Pete. As we have seen, this COVID-19 pandemic started with an atmosphere of uncertainty from China and Asia. No one knew what was happening in China. People were dying, and this unknown virus has taken the world by storm. Lockdowns, as Mr. Savaltori has pointed out, masks, sanitizers, hand washing, and working from home became the new normal. This new normal has taught us that we should value health over economy, money over people, and cooperation over competition inclusively. So that talks about the cooperative values. We have also seen that the COVID-19 vaccine created by Oxford, UK in Europe is being manufactured in bulk in India and distributed to other countries across continents. This has shown that the world is small and one and united. It has once again reinforced the strength of cooperative values and principles. This is the essence of cooperation. Today, when we have the vaccine to control the widespread of COVID-19, we see new virus strains, new mutant variations of COVID-19. This is an alarming situation. At this moment, we must rise together, adopt new scientific innovations, methodologies to adapt to this new normal and make cooperatives stronger. That is what I feel. Large cooperatives like IFCO in India, we have taken this challenge from the day one at more than 3,000 locations, benefiting more than 1 million people through all measures, whether providing masks, hand sanitizers, food packets, medical apparatuses, etc., to the farmers at ground zero in different cooperatives and states of the nation. The path shown by the people-centric, compassionate, and committed leadership of Dr. U.S. Awasthi is inspirational and brought new energy in all of us in India. We will have to continue this at least for next 3 to 4 years, I feel, in cooperatives as well, till the economy is back on the rails and people back to their jobs. And the fight for Corona is over. And I think that ISET has also the same agenda. We, the large cooperatives who are the members from different countries, are working to develop a strategy for the cooperatives to rebuild their economy, which we will cover in our second phase in this year. We need innovative ideas from all of you, all the participants today in this webinar, especially the young minds in this hour of need. Once again, thanks, muchas gracias, mercy, and cooperative greetings to all my friends. Thank you, Pete. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Tarun. And I hope everybody on this call has found those remarks and those comments useful. I certainly have. There's a note in the chat which I think probably sums it up, which is about focusing on how and why cooperative enterprises can build a better, fairer world for all of us. And I think that's right. So in conclusion, clearly there are a few key thank yous that I'd like to make. Firstly, and most importantly, on behalf of ICA, ISET, EURICSI, all of us, I'd like to thank the World Co-op Monitor team for all their work in producing a report, particularly, I guess, Kiara and Alana. That's very, very appreciated by all of us. Huge thanks also to the ICA, EURICSI and the WCM sponsors for sponsoring and promoting the report. I know how much work has gone into that, and indeed for cooperatives for contributing. And as Kiara said, if we could all make a note to contribute to the 10th edition, it would be very gratefully received by all. Tarun, special thanks to yourself for your comments today, but also for the contributions you've made as chair of ISET and the collaboration you've given for ISET with the WCM, Ilana and the team. And thank you also to the other panelists today, Bruno, Gianluca and Sarah. Thank you for your insight. And finally, thanks to you all as participants, cooperatives from across the world. Over 200 have joined us on this webinar. And I think this year in particular, the collective efforts of the cooperatives you represent, whether it be mid-counties in our own country, whether it be Rabobank, whether it be the S Group, whoever, the difference you have made as cooperators to the world is gratefully and widely both recognised and received. 2021 will be a special year for cooperatives. Clearly, we have the 10th anniversary of the World Co-op Monitor, but we also have in the first week of December, the 33rd Congress in Seoul, where rebuilding the economy in cooperative measures and the strength of the cooperative identity are sure to be key themes. So thank you to one and all. I think I finally get to press a button. I'm delighted to actually launch the 9th edition of the World Co-op Monitor, and thank you to all of you for participating in the event today. Have a great afternoon, and clearly stay safe in cooperation.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I think there is one other thing to do, which is the group photo.
It was going so well. There is one thing I've forgotten. If I could ask people to do, if you could just turn on your cameras as well, then we'll try and get a group photo of all cooperators in the gallery view if we can, if that's possible.
Fantastic. Gallery view mein photo le raha hu.
Just before everyone leaves, hi to everyone. It's great to see so many people and to see all of you from all over the world. And it's really a great, great time. Thank you very much to ICA, to obviously Eurix. Hopefully we'll meet in presence. Ciao.
Ciao.
Yeah, thank you all.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Hey, bye-bye. Ciao to everyone.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you
Thank you very much.
for joining.
Thank you too. Adios.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you next time.
Yes.
Ciao.
Yes.
Thank you very much, all of them.
Thank you, Nal. Thank you.
Thank you, Tarun.
Bye-bye.
Sorry, our camera doesn't work. Okay, bye-bye. See you.
Hello, Bruno from Boston. Paul.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
I think
you.
if the
Thank
host
you.
can enable cameras.
Thank you, Bruno.
It was awesome to see all the cooperators of the world together on this screen, you know. God bless all.
Thank you.
Well,
Happy.
Thank
Well,
you,
I'm surprised
everybody.
because the host has disabled the cameras.
Yeah. Disable
No.
camera. Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
activate it. You have just to push it, push the button.
No,
Yeah,
No.
we are pushing, but it doesn't work. Host must give permission.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So,
It's okay.
photo or no photo? I don't understand. What's going on? See or no?
We've taken a few photos.
Okay, great. So I love you. Have a nice time. Stay
Okay.
healthy. Ciao.
Ciao.
Okay. Ciao.
Bye,
Ciao.
everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Well done, Pete. Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye. Good luck, everybody.
The publication is officially on the website. You can download it now.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well done.
I took a few photos. I'm sorry for who does not have their video activated, but it should be allowed for everybody. I'm trying to enable everybody's one by one, but okay. Thank you, everybody. I think we can end the meeting as soon as Laura has gotten a few photos. Oh, Nicola, oh, I got your video. There you are. Hi, Nicola.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
That was brilliant. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.